Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Hopefully you've all had a fantastic Friday so far. We are seeing a bit of relief for the cryptocurrency market, and we are, of course, going to be getting into that in this daily cryptocurrency market update, mainly because we're seeing a little bit of dollar. The dollar is sort of seeing a bit of a rest, but we're also going to be looking at a lot of the news circulating right now in regards to the cryptocurrency market, something that we've been largely neglecting, if you will, and not really focusing on, given the sort of price action and just how explosive it's been, and trying to sort of work out where we are heading. And we have said, look, you know, we've been covering this for a long time now. We've been looking at this long-term regression bands for Bitcoin as a kind of macro view, and still really maintaining our bias that this market continues to go lower. And that's a bias that we've had for quite some time now, but we'll get into it all in this video. We will, of course, drop down the time frames and show you what's happening with this kind of rally that the cryptocurrency market is seeing. You know, equities, crypto is all looking for a bit of relief. My only concern is I don't think this lasts long, and I think that a relief and this relief does get killed, and we do see that further downside. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the price, and then we'll get into a little bit of the news. And a lot of it has to do, of course, with the UST situation, and of course the Luna situation, and really the fact that this is going to bring regulators into the cryptocurrency market, certainly the stablecoin space, which is a market that they've been eyeing up for a while now. We know we already have the likes of BlackRock and JP Morgan involved with USDC. And of course, you know, any unregulated or uncontrollable stablecoin, they are going to probably aggressively go after and say that it's in the name of preventing a UST situation happening again, which I don't think is amazing for the stablecoin space. It's going to sort of slow and kill off any kind of innovation, but at the same time, potentially it may stop a Luna fiasco happening again, because it's been very damaging to the whole space, if you ask me. And of course, Novogratz seems to have resurfaced, talking about his tattoo, reminding him that investing requires humility. And also AVAX is one that we've been looking to short, and in actual fact what's happening with Luna may be the catalyst for that short coming to fruition. So this is where we're at, guys. We've been highlighting for a while now, when we were sort of consolidating above this midline for the long-term regression bands for Bitcoin, that are likely you are going to do something similar to 2018, or prior to that 2014. That has indeed come to fruition. We are expecting some sort of a relief rally. However, the relief rallies that we're getting currently, to me, look very weak, and we are indeed going into the weekend. So watching the stock market, certainly the ES and the NASDAQ, I think is going to be very telling. You know, if they start to come off into the close of the day, likely that's going to get echoed into the cryptocurrency market, and people are going to be taking more risk off the table over the weekend. People don't typically want to hold risk over the weekend, certainly when your traditional market doesn't give them any kind of a benchmark and a guiding light moving forwards. So we still think you're coming down to this lower band here, around about the 23K range. I actually can see a bit of a lower target. I do think, look, guys, this is a downtrend. We deal with it accordingly. There's no point in me blowing smoke up anybody's backside and just, you know, really calling this what it is. But the good news is, and we did stress this in yesterday's video, we do come out the other side of this, and there's going to be some amazing opportunities to be had along the way. And hopefully this channel is going to help you get them, help you sort of spot the opportunities that are presenting themselves. So this is, and of course we'll take off the long-term regression bands, the DXY. This is really primarily why you're seeing the DXY has had an amazing run. It's now seeing a bit of a pullback. This is kind of giving markets a little bit of a sigh of relief and allowing them to get further continuation or sort of see that relief rally. It's ran key levels. To me, this looks like a very typical resistance and now support flip on your prior highs. Ultimately, we think the DXY goes a lot higher. And the reason being is because if you look at the DXY, it's not that we necessarily think that the equity, it really has much to do with the equity market, more the fact that it has everything to do with the other currencies that the DXY is actually pegged against. And they are in trouble. And actually seeing higher inflation, certainly in the UK, we saw 9% than the dollar is. And that's what a lot of this is about, you know, the DXY kind of beating its chest and really showing people who's the boss, if you will. And this, of course, is damaging to the equity market. And we spoke yesterday about an article covered by JP Morgan saying don't fight the Fed or don't bet against the Fed. And that's our stance. We're not trying to bet against the Federal Reserve, that are literally telegraphing and telling you that they are actively trying to bring down demand and essentially markets in doing that via upping interest rates and this sort of hiking cycle that I don't think we've even really seen start yet. I mean, we have certainly started it, but to any sort of a significant degree, I think it gets significantly worse. And of course, it's going to have quite a devastating effect on markets. So that's really why you're seeing, you know, the FTSE seeing a bit of an update today. We'll move it off the weekly because, of course, you can see everything is somewhat seeing a little bit of an uptick. My only concern is, does this continue? In actual fact, I think this is quite likely to get, we could end up closing back down in the red, and I think that's going to lead crypto to sort of slide off. And I am actively looking to short this market, ladies and gentlemen. We've made no bones about that. We have said, ultimately, you do have, and we'll get rid of these lines, you do have structure here that we've been pointing out for a while now that does point to some sort of a move to the upside. You've got some sort of an ascending triangle here. And the fact that the market's very much telling you which direction it wants to go for Bitcoin. You can see all these touches, deviation that you're having to the upside. More touches to the upside than you've got the downside. That makes me think that this market wants to sort of climb higher. In actual fact, we are looking, this being, of course, your May, and we've been looking to open shorts during this kind of accumulation period that we've previously seen. And a rally into that, for me, I'd like a little bit more of a rally. I'd like us to get up towards your sort of 31, 32. The higher it goes, the harder I'm going to short it, basically, because I'm very much, and I'm not necessarily even going to be shorting Bitcoin. It's really going to be the altcoins that also have a similar structure setting up in regards to an ascending triangle. I'm very much confident that markets are kind of set in a downward trajectory now, and that rallies are going to be shorted given the sort of macro and monetary stance that we're currently dealing with at the moment. And that was a head and shoulders that we gave you back there for Rune. We will be looking to short these markets. You can see if we look at these are all not brilliant examples, but if you look at Ethereum, for example, you can see that, to me, it's still a weak rally. I mean, this isn't a rally that I would expect something more, to be honest, across the board. And we're just not really getting that. And it kind of almost looks like things are rolling over again. But we will be looking to short. I don't even know if we'll get to this kind of accumulation zone for Bitcoin before it rolls. So be very careful longing. I don't think this is necessary. If you want a DCA, guys, I think DCA actually works for the retail investor very well. I am also a retail investor. But ultimately, I do think prices are going lower, and I'm certainly keeping money on the sidelines ready for when that happens. And this rally is largely on the back end of a week, or the dollar having a bit of a pullback, if you will. And this is allowing all markets to kind of flourish. The only thing is the dollar is going higher, in my opinion, and ultimately that's going to lead to markets slipping to the downside once again. And that's the trajectory that I think we're on. Let's get into a little bit of the news. UST crash won't stop the industry, says Morgan Stanley. Algorithmic stablecoins are especially complex, and UST's crash likely influenced institutional players to take a closer look at the technology behind the token. It's not been a good thing, the whole UST lunar crash, but one thing that has been a sort of silver lining out of it is people are actually educating themselves on algorithmically stablecoins. I don't even think people realize that, an algorithmically backed stablecoin is backed by crypto, not necessarily the US dollar, or is partly maybe backed by the US dollar, and then a basket of cryptos on top of it. And that's really what's led to this kind of a cascade. Them adding Bitcoin to their peg, if you will, really was very devastating, certainly given the sort of market volatility that we've seen, and they were just unable to maintain it. Here is another article. Biden's pick for Fed Vice Chair for Supervision calls for congressional action on stablecoins. Fed nominee Michael Burr said that the government's agency potentially released a central bank digital currency was an issue that required a lot more thought and study. I actually think that they've been looking to regulate, the US dollar doesn't like competition. Stablecoins, even though they are somewhat backed to the US dollar, but not issued by the US government, typically, unless they're backed by an actual US dollar, it is competition for them. And I've, there's lots of speculation about what caused this. After the TERRA Luna fiasco, the UK wants to regulate stablecoins, and this, of course, is Novogratz resurfacing. Novogratz says Luna Tattoo is a consistent reminder investors require humility. Absolutely. He also makes a very clear statement that, it's not going away and that crypto is here to stay. And that's our stance. We just think right now that we've got a lot of macro headwind to deal with. But ultimately, we do come out the other side of this, and crypto isn't going anywhere and is only going higher, in my opinion, and is going to be, the biggest asset class moving forwards in terms of ROI. Over the next 5-10 years, I think crypto is going to be where people would have only wished they had put their money in the long term. Short term volatility is to be expected given how early this space is and that it's an emerging market. Avalanche says Luna Foundation Guard has disclosed no plans for AVAX token. So this is an interesting one because we know that essentially the Luna Foundation that sold their Bitcoin and sold a number of other things did not sell their AVAX and did not sell their BNB tokens. But will they? I think it's probable potentially. I don't know how they're going to go about doing it. But, you know, this is certainly if they get sort of scrapping UST, well, what do they do with those tokens? Well, they may use it to generate capital, and that would see a further sort of cascade, in my opinion, for AVAX, which is actually one of the altcoins that I personally will be looking to short. When, you know, I'm very cautious. I don't just want to jump into this market and hope that we go to the downside being somebody that's shorting it. I want to see some sort of a structure set up. I want to see some sort of a deviation before I, you know, commit to shorting. And certainly right now, I'm not aggressively shorting anything. I may take some punts, some sort of feeler shorts. But ultimately, I want to see some sort of maybe a deviation, come back below and then smash, or see higher and then come and look at some of these previous levels up here that we may look to take, hold, and then once we get that deviation and we start seeing that momentum come back to the downside, that's what we'll be shorting. And ultimately, I think that's going to have a lot of confluence with the likes of the S&P, you know, your stock market, which is really going to, in my opinion, set the tone for crypto moving into the weekend. And I've got to say, I mean, Apple today, or certainly I don't think Apple has actually opened. We'll see how all the US stocks open and then we'll sort of position accordingly. If it's a bad day for them, I think it's going to be a not so positive for crypto. But, you know, we are seeing, if you look at this as a sort of trend line, you know, we are seeing that crypto, to me, or certainly Bitcoin, is somewhat telling us that it wants to see upward continuation until it doesn't, you know, certainly whilst it's hovering around here. But that could get killed off very quickly given the kind of market that we're in. So that's really all I've got for you in this video, guys. It was just an update on everything going on. You know, market is in green, but this is nothing to get excited about, in my opinion. And in actual fact, you know, you guys know our stance and we're not sugarcoating it for you at all. We think that further downside will ensue eventually, and that this is a downtrending market until the Fed really pivot and change their monetary policy and we see markets adjust accordingly. That's when we start to get bullish again. Overall, we're bullish on crypto full stop, certainly in the macro and over the long-term time horizon. Short term, we just think we've got a little bit of headwind to contend with. That's all I've got for you in this video, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.